Hey there, I'm MrLeftTurn and welcome to my favorite race shop. I know some of you might be thinking, hey, Season 8 is over and Season 9 is already halfway done. Why are you talking about Season 7? Well, back when I was attempting to review every new episode of the show as it came out, I simply hit a snag that I was just never able to recover from without sacrificing video quality. I was attending BronyCon 2017 when Fame and Misfortune aired, and because of that, I fell behind on my reviews and was never able to catch back up on Season 7. However, while I was able to crank out several more episode reviews of the season, there are still a few remaining I've yet to talk about, including the season finale. So, since I already reviewed the majority of Season 7, and there are only 7 episodes I have yet to discuss, I figured I'll try to get them all out in mini-reviews in one video while throwing in my top 5 episodes of the season. And because I'm already very late to wrapping up the 7th season, without any further ado, please enjoy my Leftovers of Friendship is Magic Season 7. Kicking off this video is the 3rd episode in the Daring Do trilogy, Daring Done. One of the more interesting things I remember about this episode is how it was accidentally released on Hasbro's YouTube channel about 5 days before it was set to air on Discovery Family, and naturally, people jumped on the chance to download it before the error was corrected. As for Daring Done itself, well, I thought the episode was pretty fun. I don't think it was as good as Daring Don't and Stranger Than Fanfiction, but the entertainment factor was definitely present and didn't disappoint me. Not only did this Daring Do episode take us to yet another new location with the Somnambula village in Equestria's Egypt, but I found the role reversal for Daring's character fascinating. It was really intriguing to see that Southern Equestria knew Daring Do existed, but not AK Yearling, so AK could walk around as Daring Do without drawing attention to herself had she not been wanted by the village for the damages she caused. And I thought that AK having the weight of her adventuring on her shoulders for causing damage a nice addition to her character rather than her collecting ancient artifacts and storing them away without second thought to the places she visited. That helped bring a real-world perspective to her character, and it was one I really enjoyed to see, even if it was easy to tell that it was Cabaleron trying to frame her underneath that cloak. With the legend of the village's namesake, Somnambula, being introduced in this episode, it was fun picking up on the hints that the latter half of Season 7 could possibly have an arc to it, since Daring Done was the 2nd episode in a 3-episode stretch to feature an old legend being told, and the 4th legend overall. And with the Sphinx's magic turning out to be real, remember how Rainbow and Daring couldn't fly in the Sphinx's lair, it brought forth the possibility that the other 3 legends and any other legends that the season offered up could be real too. There are a couple of dents in the episode, however. While the theme and lesson of hope are nice, the episode doesn't really bring anything new or unique of MLP to the table that Star Wars has been preaching since 1977. I'm not saying it was a bad execution. I mean, hope definitely tied into AK Yearling's depression over losing the will to be Daring Do, but nothing with the lesson really stood out that much. Plus, why did we not see Twilight freaking out over that newspaper article? Can you just imagine the insanity we could have seen in her castle library over this, and having Spike and Starlight be terrified over Twilight losing her mind? Nonetheless, I still felt Daring Done was a solid adventure episode with an interesting twist to the Daring Do formula. Green flag episode. Oh boy. Yeah, this is an episode I was definitely wary about returning to for this video. I didn't care for It Isn't the Main Thing About You when it first aired, I just found it a bit boring with a predictable storyline. In fact, due to my more optimistic nature, I was hoping to find something I may have missed nearly 2 years ago that would have raised the episode up. To put it as simply as I can for the time being, this is easily my absolute least favorite episode of Season 7. I know there are people who genuinely liked this episode and are probably shocked to hear it, but yes, I'm not a fan of this one. But since there are still 5 remaining on the list, I'll try to keep it as simple and straightforward as I can without this one dominating the video.
Go on.
For starters, the intro is 3 minutes and 8 seconds long. Why is it longer than most of the intros to season openers? And if that's not bad enough, it actually feels like it's an hour long because it just drags on and doesn't really amount to much. Not to mention, there aren't even any funny jokes inserted to break up the monotony of it. All this opening scene does is hammer in a fact about the show that we've known for 7 years. That Rarity is the element of generosity and enjoys helping ponies. That's fine and all, but there is no reason to waste 3 minutes of our time reminding us about something that's been a known fact since the series premiered. And to add to this, the opening scene is repetitive as well. It's just Rarity assisting, I use that term lightly, different ponies around Ponyville before she gets to Sugar Cube Corner where she gets sticky string in her hair. You could have easily cut this down to about 1.5 minutes tops to get the same message across without having to waste precious minutes of the runtime, which in a 22-minute cartoon is huge. This does come into play later with how Rarity perceives the town's ponies treating her, but it still doesn't need to be this long. Also, I don't know why, but for some reason it really feels like the episode puts Rarity up on a pedestal above the rest of the Ponyville residents. Yes, she is a main character and all, but the way she's introduced like a Jesus Rarity, coupled with the fact that the flower ponies seem lost when dealing with flowers, the fan shop pony needing pointers about his own fans, and the Quills and Sofas pony really not knowing that more colors is a good idea. They may be background characters, but they didn't need to be dumbed down to being clueless like this. It's like if I suddenly had no clue about NASCAR and Rarity had to remind me about certain facts for a video I was making. It's kinda patronizing. Had the characters actually asked Rarity for a few pointers, like if the fan pony was already in the middle of rearranging his stock and requested Rarity's input on which arrangement works the best, that would have been much better. It would have kept up with illustrating Rarity's generosity, and it would have shown them to be competent at their special talents, but having a second opinion is perfectly fine. And in some cases, being a second opinion for someone can be extremely generous and helpful. Moving on, while the setup with the sticky string and Sugar Cube Corner was cute and all with the Cake Twins, the scene in Zeccora's hut doesn't fare very well. It's not as bad as the intro, but the pacing still isn't good. The sequence is pretty much just Zeccora, Pinky, and Rarity rambling on about mains and various magical ways they can be screwed up. It ultimately does nothing but extend the scene's length and gives us an excuse for how the vials get mixed up in the first place. Oh gee, like we totally couldn't see that coming anyway. And not only that, but why does Rarity explain her need for the shampoo after Zeccora gives her the instructions? Wouldn't Rarity have already told her why she needed the shampoo and that's why Zeccora was making it for her in the first place? Then after Rarity leaves, for some reason we don't immediately follow her, we stay with Pinky. Why exactly? The main point of the episode is about Rarity and her hair troubles, so why are we focusing on Pinky with Zeccora here after the main plot just left? Heck, even Zeccora acknowledges Pinky's sort of overstaying her welcome and gives her a hint to leave so the episode can continue. This whole scene is jumbled up with bland jokes, rambling, a predictable setup, Pinky refusing to end the scene, and just horrid pacing. The best way to fix this is honestly have only Rarity be there since Pinky was simply just a plot device to kickstart the conflict anyway, and immediately cut from Rarity traveling to the Everfree into Zeccora's hut, where Zeccora is pouring the liquids into the vials. However, instead of Zeccora's main ramblings spooking Rarity into dropping the vials, we should have Rarity's freaking out distract her from which vial is hers and which vial is Pinky's. Yes, it's still the mix-up cliche, but it's much more natural to have Rarity be so inattentive by her ruined main that she simply isn't paying attention to Zeccora and doesn't hear which one is which. Maybe we could even have an inner monologue from Rarity voicing her concerns amplified over Zeccora's dialogue. You could even have the liquids be completely different colors and use this to really illustrate how insanely distracted Rarity is about her main and the photo shoot coming up, and foreshadow how she's going to make things more difficult for herself. Speaking of getting back to Rarity, when we finally do catch back up with her, we're already 8.5 minutes into the episode before the actual issue she faces comes into play. However, it feels like someone else took the reins of the writing because the pacing here actually becomes really smooth. I mean, Rarity quickly makes her way to Zeccora's hut, and then both Rarity and the audience are informed that making another potion to restore her main only has an incredibly slim chance to work. And although we revisit the same 3 locations that ate up the time at the beginning of the episode, it proves that they don't need to be the length of Endgame to get their point across. I like that Rarity gets a bit of her confidence back, thinking that Zeccora will come up with a solution, only for those to be dashed when a young pony cries at her appearance, which leads to her confidence gradually waning. She allows Carrot Top to take her place in line for flowers, makes the fan pony think she's a plain non-fabulous pony, and then she doesn't have the voice to claim her own sofa from Quills and Sofas. The demonstrations here work in the way they illustrate that Rarity is letting her main control her thought process and attitude. And again, it does it in a nice, brisk pace that gets the point across without rushing it. Unfortunately, these are the only times we actually get to see Rarity's lack of confidence work against her, and that is a shame because of how well the episode portrayed it. I think the episode could have benefited from more scenes of Rarity's lack of confidence and how it's affecting not only her attitude, but also her seamstress work. The rest of the second act and even the first chunk of the third act is dedicated to 4 failed attempts to get her mane back or to give her a new mane. Really, when both Twilight and Starlight's magical attempts fail, and then Zecora gives the news that the only thing they can do is let her grow her mane back, there's honestly no good reason to have AJ, Rainbow, and Fluttershy try their hooves at it. It's completely unnecessary because A, we know they're not going to work, and B, it takes away from either Rarity getting to reflect on what to do or showing us just how detrimental her ruined mane is to her life now. I admit Rarity using the trio as guinea pigs to give their thoughts on a new outfit was good, but just imagine how much more impactful Rarity's depression could have been had we seen her diminished confidence ruin her seamstress work as well. You know, have a client or two take a look at her work in disgust because she's so out of the zone that her dresses become horrible. Having both her mane and her life's work ruined should be what sends Rarity into her depression because it would actually feel impactful and earned. And oh, by the way, one glaring problem I have with the Twilight Starlight method of helping Rarity is it's kind of a plot hole for the show itself. It's explicitly stated by Twilight that,
"But it has to come from somewhere." You can't just make a mane with magic. The results could be disastrous.
Okay, fair enough. But if that's true, then how come 6 seasons earlier, as a unicorn, she was able to give Spike, and later on Snips and Snails, facial hair with only a little bit of effort? Why is one set of hair nearly impossible to accomplish with effects that could be disastrous, but another is perfectly doable if the magic user is proficient enough? I mean, that hair had to come from somewhere too, regardless of what it was for. Is it so incredibly hard and nearly impossible to pull off because it would then negate the entire conflict and lesson of the episode if it was easy? That's definitely another point against it. Anyway, now we get to the ending. Yeah, I'm sorry, but to have her immediately fall into a depression-like state after AJ, Rainbow, and Fluttershy's methods to help fail, only to snap right out of it after one quick talk with her friends is too jarring for my liking. Now, I'm more than happy to acknowledge that we saw signs of sadness and depression earlier, but the buildup was inconsistent because the episode didn't really know what to do with Rarity. She was either sad or going crazy. Remember how bad we all felt for Rarity and Suited for Success after Hoity Toity trashed her friends' dress redesigns? Throughout that episode, we saw Rarity's stress get to her for her friends making changes to their outfits she knew wouldn't work, but she still worked her tail off to please her friends. To see that ripped to shreds by a pony whose opinion she highly cared for was devastating. Our frustrations grew with her because we saw her working her flank off only to have it spat on. Heck, even in Inspiration Manifestation, we saw how proud she was of the work she had done on that puppeteer's theater, only for him to rip it apart more than Pat Rex 11 ripping apart Teen Titans Go. Here, I simply don't feel her depression was really earned because the second act was so inconsistent with Rarity feeling either depressed and hollow because of her diminishing confidence, or going insane like Twilight in Lesson 0. And again, we didn't get to see enough of her struggling with her confidence like in town with other towns-ponies for her moment of realization to feel genuine. To be fair, I do like her Rarapunk look, and I'm thrilled the community took a liking to it, but it's just a neat little surface level thing about the episode I like. And the lesson, yeah, it sounds nice of course, you only look as good on the outside as you feel on the inside, and one could argue it also pulls the making lemonades out of lemons lesson, but with how quick of a heel turn Rarity did at the end because of one short talk, I just don't feel either lessons really matter because the execution was not very good. Wow, that episode kind of got away from me. But in conclusion, it's a mess. The pacing is absolutely horrid, it takes a little too long to get to the main point of the episode, the second act started out giving us hope that the episode would be better, only to quickly toss aside actually seeing Rarity's lack of confidence work against her and devolving into lame jokes, and the ending where Rarity snaps out of her depression feels incredibly rushed. Then you throw in that plot hole where the episode ignores the fact that Twilight's given Spike facial hair before with magic in Season 1, yet for some reason main hair is nearly impossible without disastrous results. This is sadly a red flag episode and one I really don't want to come back to again.
Rather be the worst rocker in the world than the best punk band.
And we'll say if anybody asks us, hey, where you gonna go? We're off to see the world. We don't need to know.
Okay, that's just a wee bit uncomfortable. With the CMC arc of the show, I really found the post-Crusaders of the Lost Mark saga interesting because of how well the writers built off each episode. They went from obtaining their cutie marks to not knowing what to do next, to helping tender taps, going out and helping random fillies and colts in Ponyville, turning their helpfulness and special talent into a small business in Forever Philly, to here in Marks and Recreation where the CMC start up their own camp so they can help multiple ponies at once, thus speeding up the process. That's just really awesome and consistent character growth for the trio. Yet, coupling that with an episode where one of their classmates actually refuses to get a cutie mark of his own presented an interesting challenge for Scootaloo, Applebloom, and Sweetie Belle. I really liked Rumble going out of his way and refusing to get a cutie mark because he's afraid it'll take away his dream of flying with his brother in the Wonderbolts. It of course creates a really unique situation for the CMC, but this also makes Marks and Recreation somewhat of an inverse of Bloom and Gloom. Whereas Applebloom was afraid of getting a cutie mark her family would dislike, Rumble was afraid a cutie mark would strip away his chance of becoming a Wonderbolt alongside his brother Thunderlane. They both deal with two different characters' apprehensions about cutie marks, but in completely different ways. And on a personal level, Rumble here reminds me so much of myself as a kid. I wanted to be a NASCAR driver and didn't really care about being anything else. How I'd get and play every new NASCAR game that came out because that's all I wanted to do. Now, obviously that didn't happen, but I enjoyed the way the episode presented this lesson to kids to both aim for their dream job or career, but to also keep their options open because you may just find something else equally enjoyable that you're also great at. In fact, the episode does this don't be afraid to try new things lesson in a clever way. Rather than a character remaining in a rut or being afraid of failing at something new and embarrassing themselves, it pulls the rug out from under the audience and says that you can still have a dream to aim for, but you shouldn't prevent yourself from finding other things you're good at or having fun with. It also does a good job of foreshadowing and demonstrating throughout the episode what the CMC and Thunderlane were trying to teach Rumble, that it's perfectly healthy and even encouraging to find other activities and skills to hone, such as Kettlecorn's circle painting, Thunderlane's horseshoe talents, Pipsqueak making jam, Applebloom pointing out that she likes potion making with Zecora, and Thunderlane, again, cooking. You know, one of the main things I really appreciated about the episode was how it portrayed Rumble as more misguided instead of being a character who is maliciously in the wrong for the sake of having an antagonist. That scene where he looks longingly at Thunderlane practicing, we can see just how much it means to him to not just be a Wonderbolt, but to be one with his brother. Even when he tries to build his own Wonderbolt's obstacle course was a great showcasing of how passionate Rumble is for aiming for his dream. This ties into that fairly funny scene where he yells at the CMC that he doesn't want a cutie mark, and they are floored at his words. He's so set in his ways that he's afraid that straying off the path he wants to set for himself, even just a tiny bit, can knock him off course forever. And then he points out to Applebloom that,
I still like making potions with Zecora.
And when was the last time you did that?
I love this moment so much because it both shows that he's really not wrong. The CMC doing what their cutie marks tell them has started to interfere with their other hobbies, which only fuels his anxiety that a cutie mark could ruin his dream and he won't have time for it. However, it also ties back into how misguided he is. And I mean, he is a kid after all, so that really helps make him more sympathetic. Him making this point adds so much depth to his character rather than him coming off as just a one-dimensional antagonist that thinks cutie marks are lame, and even adds to his desperation of trying to stay away from getting a cutie mark. It's another good moral for kids to learn that yes, sometimes your main job or career can interfere with dabbling in your other hobbies, but that doesn't mean it's always the case. Finding a balance between your main career or special talent and your other hobbies can make life much more enjoyable. However, there are some things I find a little troubling with the episode. While I think Rumble's voice actor does a great job voicing the Colt, I mean his BSing through all the activities was genuinely good, Rumble's singing voice really isn't that great. He sounds like he's trying his best, but it sounds a little off-key to me. And to add to that, the song itself really isn't special either. The lyrics are alright at best, and when you combine that with subpar singing, it's not a good sign. Yet if having a pretty forgettable song wasn't bad enough, the Phillies and Colts so easily turning against the CMC despite knowing that they've helped others with their cutie marks, and would have no reason not to trust the three, just makes them seem dumbed down. Especially Pipsqueak. Come on man, these girls helped you become class president in the very same episode that they got their own cutie marks. It would have been far better to have a few students stick by loyally to the CMC and a few go with Rumble, but show them getting frustrated with not getting their cutie marks before the song, so it's more understandable for a few of them to be swayed by Rumble. I did, however, feel the episode sorta did this better at the end, where not every Philly and Colt from Blank Flank Forever camp immediately went to the CMC's camp to hang out with Thunderlane. I liked that some showed apprehension and had to be swayed by several activities before they decided to return. It doesn't fix how easily duped they were earlier by the song, but this at least was a little better. Getting right down to it, this episode is slightly down the middle. I loved the idea behind the episode, the lesson, Rumble's character depth, and some of the execution, but with the song not being that great lyrically, Rumble's singing being just okay, and the Phillies and Colts all being so easily swayed to ditch the CMC do hamper the middle portion of the episode for my liking. Even with honestly funny jokes like Sweetie Belle's remaining calm.
The key is to remain calm. Cutie marks make you special!
Including her face when talking to Thunderlane, and the fact that Thunderlane and Rumble's brotherly relationship was fleshed out rather well, I have to give Marks and Recreation a yellow flag, which is a real shame because of how relatable Rumble's problem is at the beginning. Though consider it a very high yellow flag, close to being green. If only a few of the Phillies and Colts had actually stuck by the CMC, I think this would have been a green flag episode. And with that, I'm gonna have to cut this video short at 3 episodes. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, but I have to head out to the final BronyCon and I just didn't have the time to do all 6 episodes I'd originally planned. I really hope the 3 I've done suffice until I return and finish the final 3. I'm MrLeftTurn, and I'll see you when I get back from BronyCon.
Lefty? Lefty, I know you're in there. Let me in.